This morning, the president posted on Truth Social that he has no doubt that Warsh will go down as one of the great Fed chairmen, maybe the best. Now, Charles is out today, but he is all over the news, and he actually joins me right now. A special guest on his own program is Charles Payne. Hey there, Charles. Yeah, I mean, what a day. There was Kevin Hassett, it was Kevin Warsh, it was Reader. And as of this morning, the president posting on True Social that we have our pick. Question: can he get through the Senate?
Yeah. I think that part is the easy part. He's been in the Fed before. He's extremely respected on Wall Street. He's extremely respected everywhere he goes. He's got a blend, right? Of course, he's worked with Druckenmiller for a long time. That part is the easy part. The harder part and the big question mark, and why you have some crazy movements in the markets like silver being hammered, gold being hammered, the debasement trade, all of a sudden it's over. And then, of course, the market being the equities markets being a little bit sideways is which Kevin Warsh are we going to get? So just give me an example, Cheryl. Today, just looking at the media, scrolling headlines, two caught my eye. One said that Kevin Warsh, they called him the reinvented Fed critic. And another, quoting Stephen Meyer, called him an innovative financial thinker. And of course, it goes back to sort of the notion that this is a guy who, wouldn't be eager to cut rates in this environment maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But we've heard from Scott Besson, and I think he put it clearly. In fact, I'm going to just quote one of the lines he gave to media today. He said, in reality, that Warsh is clearly aligned with President Trump's productive capital supply side agenda, prioritizing investment, productivity, and private sector credit creation over financial engineering. And this is really critical. This is so important because Wall Street has become hooked on its financial engineering. We call it the punch bowl. And you've got three main ingredients: low rates, right? Of course, when they were zero, phenomenal. Quantitative easing, which is something the Fed completely invented. You think about this, you go back to 2009, when this whole thing started to explode, their balance sheet began to absolutely explode. There was a time, for a long time, no one, and I can tell you, not one person thought the Fed's balance sheet would ever be over $1 trillion. And of course, that they shattered that. And listen, Wall Street loved it. If you think about 2009, what's happened with the stock market, I continue that this rally that we're in is a secular rally. It goes back to March of 2009, when all of the rules were changed. Some call it fiscal dominance. And it's just one of these things where either the Federal Reserve, the federal government, passive investing, all of this stuff just keeps pushing the stock market higher and higher and higher. And you couple that with the fact that these corporate profits keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So we've gone from 7%, 8% margins to 16%. They're down to 14%. We're like losing our minds because tariffs are hurting our companies. They're not hurting workers. Workers started getting hurt in 2009. In fact, workers have been decimated since 2009. And it's what I like about Warsh. He's a critic of this. He's been a critic of quantitative easing, the balance sheet. And of course, again, this is what puts him at odds with the stock market and not the stock market, more, let's say, the Wall Street folks who made a lot of money and have been on easy street. So what is he talking about then? It's one of the things I think that we do believe he'll come in and be an advocate of lowering rates, at least I do, is this distinct criticism of the way Powell handled the inflation crisis, rather. And let's face it, Powell was late. Transitory was an awful, awful assessment. He stuck with it too long. Pride and ego got in the way. And listen, almost every economist forever has said the cure for higher prices is higher prices. In other words, it's always temporary because people will balk. They will walk into the store and say, no, I'm not going to pay that. And at some point, those prices come down. That wasn't the case because, well, let's face it, Biden pumped in trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars on top of pumping in all money. He told people, hey, you don't have to pay your student loans. You have to pay rent. Just spend, 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 spend. So think about this for a moment, because everyone needs to understand what the backdrop is for all of this. It was the rate hiking cycle that began in 2022 into 2023. That first rate hike, March of 2022, was only 25 basis points. That's nuts. There were already red flags. There were already houses on fire. We knew that we were heading towards something that, quite frankly, we hadn't seen in 4 decades. that we were heading into uncharted territory for almost every adult person born right now, who, young families, people wanted to get by, and it was devastating. So they went 25 basis points. Then they waited till May, and they said, okay, maybe it is out of control. We'll go 50 basis points. And then think about this: June, 75 basis points; July, 75 basis points; September, 75 basis points; November, 75 basis points. 4 75-point hikes in a row. That's an admission, a de facto admission that we blew it. We absolutely blew it. We were behind. We didn't tap down on this thing. Then they had to go 50, 25, 25, 25. That's the rate hiking cycle that Kevin Warsh has been very, very he's been very critical of. He's been very, very critical of. And so I anticipate one of the reasons he'll want to lower rates is to sort of unwind that. You hear people saying, well, they've lowered rates a few times and it hasn't moved the needle. We're going to lower rates 50 basis points, 75 basis points, 75 basis points, 75 basis points, 70. I mean, the rate declines that we've seen, no way and any rhyme or reason offset the rate hikes that we had and that we're living with. And it was great for rich people because guess what they had to do? They just parked the money in money markets. They were getting 5%. It was awful for Main Street because your credit card rate went from 16%. If you're lucky, 22%. Most people, 24, 25. Small businesses getting squeezed, crushed. It's the dynamics for Main Street were absolutely awful. Here's another thing I'd like to see him do. This whole thing about Fed independence. It's a farce. First of all, this is from the Federal Reserve's own site. I've got a piece here I want to talk about. I want to read to the audience. It says, Congress oversees the entire Federal Reserve System. All right, check. And the Fed must work within the objectives established by Congress. Check. Yet Congress gave the Federal Reserve autonomy to carry out its responsibilities without political pressure. This is the tricky part. Each of the Fed's three parts, the Board of Governors, the Regional Fed Reserve, and the Federal Open Market Committee, those are the folks who met this week to change or keep rates unchanged, operate independently of the federal government. So on the surface, Congress has some sort of control, they claim, then they admit themselves that they've designed the system where there's no accountability, not to Congress, not to America, not to a president, not to themselves, not to anyone. It can be wrong for a long time. They can crush the American dream, which they have done. So my hope is that when Warsh gets in there, they go and they find a way to get rid of this loophole. No, the Board of Governors should be responsible to Congress, and Congress should be responsible to the people. Regional reserve banks, they have to have a responsibility to the community. They must. Federal Open Market Committee, they cannot operate the way they're operating. It's just too much pride and ego. They're wrong too often. The Fed was conceived in 1913 in the promise of no more crazy business cycles, the boom and bust cycles that brought us 4 panics in the 1800s. Well, guess what? We had the Great Depression and a whole lot of ups and downs, crazy gyrations since then. So I think he'll still clear of all the political stuff. He'll sail through in terms of confirmation, and he's got the gravitas. No one can dispute his intelligence, his accomplishments. And for that reason also, I think Jay Powell will walk away gracefully. If Jay Powell stays on, now remember Jay Powell, Warsh wanted this job when Jay Powell was reappointed. It was neck and neck. It will look really, really pitiful. It will look awful. It would be a bad look on Powell to want to stay, or any of these other folks who said they're leaving. Leave gracefully. This is an amazing opportunity for a reset. The Federal Reserve has too much power. Warsh has acknowledged that. They have too many, they speak every week. I mean, oh my God, didn't speak at all. We need to find a happy medium between the Fed speaking every week, some member of the Fed moving markets willy-nilly, and, maybe never speaking at all. But what they're doing right now is atrocious. Warsh has already said he's going to tamp down on that. Banking regulations, they're too involved in the banking system. They have too much power. Congress has given them too much power. The fact that they have 2 mandates, no other central bank does. Cowardly Congress gave the Fed, the job of Congress was to have full maximum potential employment. They gave it away in the 1970s. They didn't want it. They didn't want the pressure. Imagine this. Imagine if the Fed was only in charge of jobs and Congress was in charge of inflation. That would mean, the feckless spending might stop. Now, I don't know if we'll go that far because there's some serious power people in position. They're raking in trillions of dollars on the status quo. but I think Warsh can go a long way toward fixing some of the rights from wrongs and making the Federal Reserve more of an instrument for Main Street than Wall Street fat cats.
So great for you to call in today, and I know it's your day off, and I really appreciate all the commentary from you. And I agree. I think it's going to be a sea change for the Fed, but in a good way. And I've seen the same criticisms, from others, and even the editorial board at the Wall Street Journal today is applauding this nomination by President Trump. So there's a lot of market news to get to. Thank you so much for that, Charles. I really appreciate your perspective,
right.
sir. It's good to see you. All right.
Hey, thanks for filling in. I appreciate it. You always kill it. Thank you.
You bet, sweethot. And you're back on Monday. We'll let the viewers know you will be here on Monday. Thanks so much, Charles. All right.